the test. Today's memory verse is from Isaiah chapter 7, verse 15. It says, "Reject the wrong and choose the right." The message for today's story is we worship God when we choose good things. What is your favorite food? What is your favorite song? Are all of these the best choices for you? Daniel and his friends made a good choice. Daniel and 3 of his friends stopped and stared up at the huge and beautiful palace, but they weren't excited. In fact, they were very tired and very sad. Strangers in a strange country, they were captives of the king of Babylon. Once inside the palace, servants took the boys to big bathtubs. After their baths, a servant handed each one fancy new clothes and showed them to their new rooms. "Dinner will be ready soon," the servant said. Daniel and his friends knelt beside their new beds. They prayed that God would help them be strong and choose good things in this strange country where people didn't worship him. Soon the servant called the new captives to dinner. Daniel and his friends followed him into the dining room. Delicious food covered the tables, food that came from the king's table and had been offered to idols. Daniel and his friends looked at one another with wide eyes. What should they do? This wasn't the kind of food they knew God wanted them to eat. Daniel went to the chief official in charge of all the captives. "May my friends and I eat the kind of food our God has told us to eat?" he asked politely. The official was afraid of Daniel's idea. "The king ordered you to eat his food and drink and his wine," he answered. "If you get pale and sick-looking, the king will kill me for not doing my job." Daniel thought about the problem. He spoke to Melzar, the guard appointed to care for Daniel and his friends. "Will you test us for 10 days?" he asked Melzar. "Give us only simple food to eat, fruit and vegetables and nuts and grains, and give us water instead of wine. You can see how we look after 10 days. Melzar agreed to the test. For 10 days he gave the boys simple food and water to drink. When the 10 testing days were up, Daniel and his boys looked healthier than the boys who had been eating the king's food and drinking the king's wine. Melzar decided Daniel and his friends had made a good choice. He let them continue to eat the simple food. God blessed Daniel and his friends. He helped them learn all the things they studied in King Nebuchadnezzar's school. And 3 years later, when the king tested them, he discovered that Daniel and his 3 friends had learned more and were wiser than all the other wise men in his kingdom. Daniel and his friends had chosen good things for their bodies. They had worshiped God by their choices. And you can do this. The King's Dream. Today's memory verse is from Acts chapter 20, verse 24. It says, "I want to tell people the good news about God's grace." The message for today's story is we worship God when we tell others about him. Have you ever had a dream? Was it fun remembering it when you woke up? A long time ago, a king had a very strange dream. "Oh!" King Nebuchadnezzar groaned and rolled over in his bed. He opened his eyes and looked around. It was still very dark. The king thought about the strange dream he had just had. He tried to go back to sleep, but it was no use. "Bring the wise men," he called to his guards. Quickly, the guards woke up some of the wise men and rushed them to the king. King Nebuchadnezzar frowned at the men. "I had a dream that troubles me," he said. "O king, live forever," replied the men. "Please tell us your dream, then we will tell you what it means." "No," King Nebuchadnezzar shouted. "You must tell me the dream, and then you must tell me what it means." The wise men looked at each other. They did not smile. "No one can do what the king asks," they whispered. King Nebuchadnezzar became very angry. "Take them away! Take all the wise men away," he ordered. Daniel, one of the wise men, had not been awakened. He only learned of the trouble when the guards came to take him away with the other wise men. "What is troubling the king?" Daniel asked. The guard explained, "The king has had a troubling dream, and the wise men couldn't tell him what it was." "Please," Daniel said, "let me talk to the king." Daniel bowed before the king. "Please give me some time. I want to pray to my God and ask him to tell me your dream and what it means," he asked politely. King Nebuchadnezzar frowned, but he agreed. Daniel hurried to his 3 best friends. Together they prayed that God would show Daniel this secret. That night, God did tell Daniel the king's dream. In the morning, Daniel went back to King Nebuchadnezzar. "Can you tell me what I dreamed and what it means?" the king demanded. "No," Daniel answered, "I can't. But there is a God in heaven who explains secret things." And Daniel told the king exactly what he had dreamed and what it meant. "That's my dream!" King Nebuchadnezzar shouted. "Now I know that your God is the greatest of all," he exclaimed. Nebuchadnezzar made Daniel a ruler in the kingdom, and he put Daniel in charge of the other wise men. Daniel was happy to help. He was happy about helping the other wise men out of trouble. But Daniel was happiest because the king now knew that the God of heaven is the only true God.